Hello and thank you for joining us on the Road to COP27. We're coming to you from Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, where the COP27 is still ongoing. And on the program today, I will be talking to Dr. BANDA from WWF Zambia, and he's going to share with us what the institution is doing around climate change issues in Zambia. Just stay with me as I talk to him.
Of course, as WWF Zambia, we've got many activities that we do which relate to climate change, adaptation, mitigation, and then there are all these terminologies which have come to do with resilience. So I come in to ensure that when it comes to programming, we are using the right terminology, number one, because it's very critical. Then as we use the right terminology, we are also talking about the right aspects of climate change, because not everything that is out there is to do with climate change. When you go to do research, you should make sure that the people you are talking to have been in that area at least for more than 10 years. Because if the person has been there for a year and they are talking about climate change, it's not true. Only those who have been in that area for about 10 years will be able to give you the pattern that in the last 10 years, this is what we have noticed compared to what it used to be a long time ago. So you don't need to go to school to know that climate is changing. You just need to be in that area and observe what's going on. And that's why we can bring in issues like indigenous knowledge, because like me also, I speak to my mother. She educates me, despite being a doctor, about issues of how the floodplains were, or the dambos about Lusaka, and so on and so forth. She has a lot of this history.
Last week, the president signed an MOU with the European Union to be given funding for protection of the forests. But in which area do you think a lot more work is needed to see change and improvement?
So when we talk about climate change, there are two major concepts which are at play. There's mitigation, which is to do with the minimizing of the minimizing of the pollution. Yeah, the minimizing of the pollution of the atmosphere. That's the mitigation. Then there's also now, after climate change has happened, it impacts on livelihoods and on people's livelihoods. So that's why you bring in the concept of adapting or changing to the climate change situation. So you find that when climate change started mainly, the focus was on mitigation, on the reduction of emissions. Yes, that's the term I was looking for. Reduction of emissions. And reduction of emissions, that's why I talk about maintaining the forests, because they are like absorbers of carbon dioxide, and other gases. So there's been so much investment in that line, because that's how the climate change, even the COP itself, started from that perspective. And generally, and even the funding in mitigation is relatively better. I've done some research myself and I've written some journal papers, and you see that relatively there's better money in mitigation. Exactly, compared to adaptation. So now, with time and as the COPs progressed, especially the developing countries realized or brought to the fore that, look, whilst we want our people to conserve the forests, our people depend on these forests for livelihoods. They depend for these forests. Others do charcoal burning. I'm not saying charcoal burning is, I'm just highlighting what they do to survive. So the African and developing countries who are much dependent on natural resources brought this argument and said, look, we need to help the people, the custodians of these natural resources, to take care of these natural resources as a mitigation strategy, but at the same time we find alternatives. That's where the adaptation issue comes in. It's looking for alternatives. That's why we're even here at the COP. Our argument is that to the developing countries who caused this problem due to industrial pollution, is that, look, you colleagues, yes, you've from an economic perspective, you've taken off. You have all these goods that you consume in excess. But our colleagues, the custodians of these natural resources, they're in poverty. They are vulnerable. They stay in marginalized lands, and like Kanyama. Kanyama is a marginalized land. That's why there's so much flooding. When you go into the science of it, Kanyama is a marginalized land. Though the people who came to live in Kanyama didn't have means to go and stay in Kablonga. And you find this pattern in all these developing countries, Bangladesh and so on and so forth. Most of the people that are vulnerable, they live in marginalized land because they don't have the money. So we've brought this argument to the fore to our colleagues in the developed country.
Now, at the end of this COP, as I let you go, Dr. BANDA, what are you hoping to hear in line with the work that you do, which is adaptation and of course, climate change? What message do you hope to hear at the end of this COP as being an achievement for COP27?
The theme for this COP is Together for Action. Together for Implementation. So what we are trying to say is we've talked enough. It's time to act. They've pledged enough. It's time to release the resources.
So these technical discussions on the various issues of mitigation, adaptation, loss and damage, special circumstances for Africa, and many other things, laying the stage for the ministerial level to the presidential level. Remember, a few days ago, President HH came to set the agenda for Zambia. Met a lot of world leaders, those who were discussing good partnerships with, be it in the pollution control measures, be it in the forestry sector, be it in the financial sector. With President Hakainde Hichilema, we met the EU, we met the UK, we met the World Bank, we met the IMF, we met the African Development Bank, looking at how we can access finance. We also met the World Bank when we were discussing about the Southern African power pool, how we develop Batoka. We've been searching for only meetings which we believe will bring value to the country.
So far, how are the negotiations going in your assessment? And I know that you can't be in all the meetings at the same time, but I know that there are some crucial meetings that are as a must for you as AGN chair and also leading the Zambian delegation. So far, what are some of the highlights?
We have a pavilion here. Just this pavilion here gives you leverage to meet partners as and when you want, whatever time you want. You don't have to rush for a few meeting rooms, book them, and be restricted on time. We have selected partners to meet. That's why you saw WFP there. We've selected partners to meet. So that's giving us leverage. Yes, indeed, I cannot be in all meetings. But what I've done is that every Zambian who's here was accredited by ministry. So I know the competences, I know who's here. So deliberately we've scanned through the whole UN program and seeing where all programs are being held and attached competent people in all meetings. So even if I'm not in all meetings, I'm there through other people. And remember, we're having daily updates and strategically positioning ourselves. The bankers are here. So all engagements where we need expertise from finance, the bankers are attending them. At the end of the day, all the engagements will be put on one paper. There will be a matrix where they need me to push. I'll be there to push. Where I fail, we have a chief marketer, His Excellency the President, who will be talking to the leaders at his level. By the way, Mary, I don't know if they've seen how many people have been coming to our stand to look for me. Zambia is back in the Champions League. That's the atmosphere President HH left. That vigor, that excitement is still here. So my schedule is full. Big countries are asking to meet me, and I'm right on the table. And we are ready to engage them, we are ready to get the benefits so that our people benefit.